Hey guys and gals, Mike McFarland here. It's midweek. It's Wednesday, January 20th, and I'm going to give you a Lake Fork rundown. Um, Not messing around, getting straight to the board. Things have finally kind of got to what I call the bottom of the winter, the coldest part. Um, Basically, our water temperatures is what I'm implying are at they can get colder than they are right now, but we've had 2 to 3 weeks of just a trend of getting cold, 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 maybe a little colder, and that's what's happened to the water. Um, Last time we did a rundown, I think it was 2 weeks ago-ish, or last week, mid last week, the water was lower 50s. Okay, been fishing this week, and I can't even find 50-degree water. The backs of the creeks are as low as 46 or even cooler, but an average of 46.3 to 49 degrees, including the main lake. That's cold, and that doesn't last that long. You can catch them, but you have to keep that in mind. This is the most lethargic they are. So the coldest time of the year, the best thing to really do is look for a reaction bite. Water levels are really good. We're having rain right now, and it's not cold, but it feels like it could be a warm trend, but it's just not. It's neutral, okay? But the lake has been basically rising a little bit this week, and we're going to have several more days of rain. So I expect it to rise very slowly, maybe another half an inch or so by the end of the week, if the predictions are correct. But we're holding good levels. As of today, 402.15. That's just basically 8 inches below full pool. Spring is coming, and I'm really excited about that. You're going to get a whole lot more of these rundowns. Not necessarily every single day, but at least I'm looking for maybe 3 or 4 rundowns a week every other day. I'm going to be fishing 6 days a week come by mid-February. It's really gonna be a good 2021. So clarities, it depends on where you are. If you go far enough up the creeks, you're going to lose clarity. You're going to see some dirtier water, 0 to 1 foot. In the main lake, you may see some 1 to 2 foot clarity and a really cool color this time of year. Either Lake Fork green or what I call, what Mr. Mark Pack taught us to call gunmetal blue. The gunmetal blue area it's clear water, and it tends to be more sound. But other than that, that's kind of the gist of the lake. It's in excellent shape. Big fish right now are already moving. I got friends and some guides that I know that are catching some fish on a daily basis. A good friend of mine had 20-something pounds yesterday with 8 fish. So here's how I recommend you fish. If you're coming this week, old Mark Pack would say anytime it's colder than 46 degrees, the best place is to fish from couch. Hey, let's say you want to go fishing anyways, and some of us do, they can be caught. And here's what I recommend. In that colder water, you're going to look for a couple different things. If the sun's shining, find some warm trending areas, find some less winded areas. Find, for example, a big deep creek, a large deep creek that's got a lot of wood and trees. You know they'll suspend in those trees. And mid-afternoon, if that sun's shining, they can suspend in the tops of those trees and sunbathe, okay? So jerkbaits, flat-sided square bills, stuff like that. Potentially, I would just look for warm trended, shallow, flatted water. And a couple of the baits that I would really, really stick with, let me get rid of this rod sock here, would be the Rattle Trap, obviously. If you can find any grass, it doesn't have to be hydrilla. If you can just find some vegetation in the water, and you can spend enough time throwing Rattle Trap around it, you probably catch a few bass right now, okay? Excuse me. So colors like Sam Rayburn red, I love to have the red in the chartreuse, hard to beat. Even if you're going to throw a square bill, for example, black back with a chartreuse side, same thing, lava truce. You should be throwing something in those kinds of colors. Now, I suppose if you're down south and you're finding a little clearer water, 1 to 2 foot visibility, you might go to some of the shad colors. You may go to sexy shad. You may go to the green gizzard shad. But generally, where I'm throwing these in the backwaters, the creeks and things, and the flats and the shallow where there's some junk, I'm gonna want those reds and oranges, reds and chartreuse. Number one color, lava truce. Okay. The other bite that you can get is a jerk bait. Again, as I said, in the trees, rattle trap, square bill, and or jig. All right. If you're really good with a jig and you can really slow down with a jig, if you can find a channel swing this time of year, or a ditch and a drain, a less active drain during this rain time, and maybe not. Some of this rain coming down is warmer water than the lake. So remember those creeks and drains. Tip right there. Find the right creek and drain right now, and they can really kind of huddle up. And even though they're not there to eat, bass are territorial. Bass are angry natured creatures. Okay, biologists say they actually they attack 80% of the time to kill or fend away than they do to actually eat. So a jig, get yourself a good jig. Find a dark color, a black and blue. Find yourself like this color is one of my favorites. It's just natural craw, or even James JC spicy craws are a really good one. But a black and a brown and green pumpkin brown, orange. There's that orange again that we talk about this time of year. But the key for me is the trailer. Okay, find something like this little menace. It's real subtle. I don't want the big paddles this time of year. I want something real subtle. Everything's so cold, it's moving really slow, or not at all. And what I want to do is I want to get in one of them creek swings, and I want to throw that jig down there and find that chunky rooted stuff, get the jig in them roots, and leave it there. Leave it there long enough to make them angry. That's the hardest part of doing that. You've got to fish really, really slow. I would really prefer a black and blue. And by the way, this has paddles, which right now I would take off. I'm making an example of that. I want to get rid of those paddle type tails this time of year when it's this cold. And I'm going to use more along the lines of the beaver style or less aggressive. These still have to be pulled apart. These type of trailers are going to show, as they climb over things, a lot more docile action than those lifelike paddle tails. Okay, so that's the key. Remember a couple quick tips. And this time of year, you don't know what you're going to hook into. Fish are coming into shallow water to spawn. Some of the biggest fish of the year happen this time of year, and they happen by surprise. They happen to someone throwing a lipless crankbait in shallow water in a sunbathing big old 13-pound fish. Wow, surprise! They caught it in 1 foot of water off a secondary point or a channel swing that swings to the bank. They didn't really even recognize what they were doing, but it happens all the time on fork. The reason I'm saying this is I want you to be prepared. I basically throw my jigs on 20-pound fluorocarbon line. You may want to go to braid. 20-pound fluorocarbon line works. I'm going to use a heavy rod. Okay. In my chase, I love the real-time rods, McFarland's signature MB73 1530. This is a 6-power rod. We've added McFarland's signatures to it. Go see real-time rods. Go see those guys up there and tell them you want the MB 7'3" 1530 jig rod, and you won't regret it. Man, I can lift a whole gallon of oil off the deck of my boat with this rod. 20-pound test, high-speed gear ratio. 8-to-1 here on this Daiwa Tatula. It's a Daiwa Tatula 100, so it's real light, real small. It makes all that lighter reel makes that rod have that much more feel and sensitive to the bite, to the bottom, to everything I'm touching. Okay, so that's the way I go with my jig rods. 20-pound was the point of the lesson. 20-pound is the point of the lesson. I'm throwing square bill on monofilament, 20-pound. When you're at fork, throw it on 20-pound. Okay, if that's the day that you make that cast and that 13, 15, 17-pound bass just happens to be your turn, you want 20-pound test or greater on lake fork. Okay, don't get your heart broke. All right, you hear us talk sometimes about lighter line, and I do throw some finesse jigs on 10-pound test, and every time I get a really, really big one, they beat me up, and I end up heartbroken. So, rattle trap, I love throw it on braid, just because I'm almost going to always throw it in the grass, and that braid will cut the grass for me as I snap it through it. So I throw 40-pound braid. But my reaction rods, again, something you can throw all day, something real comfortable, semi-parabolic. You want some tips so that you can feel that thump of that rattle trap or that thump of the square bill. But basically, the 20-pound line is the most important thing. All right, that's my rundown, guys. Got a few videos I'm going to put out about jigs, jig colors, why I would choose colors, and I'm going to add to that and call it why I would choose sizes as well, particular sizes and weights. So watch for that video coming. Appreciate y'all. I'm Mike McFarland, giving you a Lake Fork rundown.